he declared, "I ask one final time, Oma, will you marry me?" The crowd was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold still. Oma stepped forward. Her voice was clear. "No, Deko. And I will tell you why." She turned to the moon was swollen and heavy that night in the village of Oru. Its light spilled like pale milk over the empty market square, making the shadows stretch like restless spirits. In the center of the square stood Oma, daughter of Koma the basket weaver. Her wrapper fluttered in the warm night breeze, but her feet did not move. Her hands were clenched by her side, not out of fear, but out of something sharper, defiance. Across from her stood Deko, son of the richest merchant in 3 provinces. His gold-embroidered tunic caught the moonlight, his face twisted with disbelief. "You think you can refuse me?" His voice was low, yet dangerous. Oma's eyes, dark as the river at midnight, did not blink. "I know exactly who you are, Deko, and that is why my answer will never change." The market seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once, then silence. How could a poor man's daughter dare to turn away the richest suitor in the land? What could be stronger than the pool of gold? The village of Oru was a place where wealth did not whisper, it shouted. Tall mud houses painted in bright ochre marked the homes of the rich. Their owners wore fine wrappers from the coast, their wives dripping in beads and coral. Men of means had servants to fan them in the heat, sweep their compounds, and carry their goods. The poor lived under patch-thatch roofs, mended again and again when the rains or wind grew bold. Their mats were thin from years of use. Yet in these modest homes, one could hear the sweetest laughter, the warmer songs, and the most generous welcomes to strangers. Oma was one of these. She was the only child of Koma, the village's humble basket weaver. Koma's baskets were strong enough to carry heavy yams yet light enough for a child to lift. Her mother had died when Oma was still a little girl, leaving behind only the soft memory of lullabies and the scent of shea butter. It was said Oma had her mother's gentle hands and her father's stubborn eyes. Her skin was the rich brown of freshly turned soil, and her eyes held the quiet depth of deep water. She was known throughout Oru not merely for her beauty but for her kindness. She fetched water for old women, shared food with hungry children, and never left a sick neighbor without offering comfort. Across the village, behind gates carved with strange animals from faraway lands, lived Deko, son of Lumo, the richest trader in 3 provinces. Lumo's trade caravans stretched farther than the eye could see, bringing silk, spices, and gold dust to Oru. Deko had never known hunger. He had never walked barefoot under the scorching sun. His path was always swept clean before he stepped on it. And yet, all his wealth could not give him what he suddenly wanted most, Oma. One bright morning, the poor quarter of Oru awoke to the sound of drums. People poured out of their homes to see what the commotion was. Deko's servants were marching down the narrow path, their arms heavy with shimmering silk from faraway lands. The colors danced in the sunlight, deep blues, burning reds, and gold that gleamed like the sun. The parade stopped before Koma's compound. The servants laid the cloth on the ground in a glittering heap. Koma's eyes widened. Oma, this is more than we could ever afford in a lifetime. Oma looked at the silk for a long moment, then at her father. Tell him I thank him, but no. Gasps escaped from the onlookers. Who refused such wealth? The silk returned the way it came. Later that day, as Oma went to fetch water from the river, the other girls surrounded her. Are you mad, Oma? One asked. Do you know how many women would kneel for such a man? Another whispered. Oma smiled faintly. And do you know how many women would weep in silence if they married the wrong man? The girls exchanged glances but said no more. A week later, the village awoke to the sound of cowbells. Down the path came another procession, leading a snow-white cow. Its hide gleamed like moonlight, its horns shone, and it was adorned with bells and beads. The animal was led straight to Koma's yard. Koma placed his hands on the cow's strong back. Oma, think. This cow alone could feed us for years. It could change our lives. Oma's voice was calm. Baba, some gifts are not gifts, they are chains. That afternoon in the marketplace, the whispers grew louder. Old women shook their heads in disbelief. Young men smirked, wondering if she thought herself too good for Deko. Some, secretly, admired her boldness, but few would say it aloud. The cow returned to Deko's compound. The third time, Deko came himself. He wore gold at his wrist and confidence in his stride. Oma, he began, I will make you a queen in my father's house. You will never fetch water again. You will never know hunger. Your feet will walk only on mats woven from the softest raffia. Every cloth you wear will come from lands beyond the sea. Every meal you eat will be a feast. Oma looked at him steadily. No, Deko. The whispers began in the market. Is she foolish? Has she been cursed? Perhaps she loves another. Deko's charm began to fade. His smiles grew sharp, his words carried an edge. That night, in his father's compound, Deko paced like a restless lion. His father asked, why do you care for this girl when there are many who would accept? Deko replied, because she is the only one who dares to say no. One evening, as Oma returned from the river, she heard two of Deko's servants speaking in low voices behind the market stalls. He says if she refuses again, he will teach her lessons she will never forget. Oma's heart pounded, but she kept walking. She said nothing. She knew something no one else knew. The night of the moon festival arrived. The air was thick with the scent of roasted goat and pepper soup. Drums pounded like the heartbeat of the village, and firelight danced in the eyes of children. Oma joined the other maidens in the dance, her beads clinking at her waist. She moved with the rhythm of the drums, the joy of the festival in her steps. Then, the drums stopped. The crowd parted. Deko stepped forward, wrapped in gold and arrogance. Before the spirits and the elders, he declared, I ask one final time, Oma, will you marry me? The crowd was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold still. Oma stepped forward. Her voice was clear. No, Deko. And I will tell you why. She turned to the crowd. When I was 10 years old, my father fell sick. We had no food. I went to your father's house to beg. He said I could have food if I swept his compound from sunrise to sunset for 3 days without rest. I did it. My hands blistered, my back ached. And on the third day, your father poured the food into the dust and laughed. That day I swore, no matter how much gold a man had, if his heart was cruel, I would never bind my life to him. The crowd gasped. The elders' faces darkened. The square was still. No one moved, no one spoke. Even the children sensed that something heavy had fallen among them. Deko's jaw tightened. His eyes darted around the faces of the villagers, searching for a trace of sympathy, but found only disappointment, shock, and worst of all, pity. One of the elders stepped forward. It was Baba Omi, the oldest man in Oru, his back bent but his gaze sharp. Deko, Baba Omi said slowly, is what Oma has said true? For a heartbeat, Deko said nothing. Then, through clenched teeth, he muttered, my father did what he thought was right. The murmurs in the crowd rose like buzzing bees. Baba Omi's voice cut through them. What a man does to a child who comes to him in hunger tells you more about his spirit than all his gold. Lumo shifted in his seat, his fine robes rustling, but he did not speak. When the festival ended, Oma and her father began the long walk back to their small home. The air was cool now, the fires in the square fading behind them. Koma glanced at his daughter. You could have stayed silent, Oma. You could have spared yourself his anger. Oma shook her head. Baba, silence in the face of cruelty is just another kind of slavery. But Deko was not done. His pride burned like hot iron in his chest. He could not bear that a poor man's daughter had embarrassed him before the elders and the spirits. 3 days later, Oma was walking to the river at dawn when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Deko alone, dressed simply, without his usual display of wealth. "Oma," he said, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "I may have acted in haste at the festival. Let us start again." She stared at him. "Start again?" "Yes. Forget what my father did. Forget what you think you know of me. I can give you the life you deserve." Oma's lips curved in a sad smile. "Deko, you could give me a palace, but if the walls are built on pride and cruelty, I will still be a prisoner." His expression hardened. "Then you leave me no choice. You will regret this." That same evening, word spread that someone had let loose a herd of goats into Koma's small vegetable patch. By the time Oma and her father arrived, the plants were trampled, the harvest gone. The villagers whispered that it was Deko's doing, but no one dared accuse him openly. Koma sat by the ruined garden in silence. Oma placed a hand on his shoulder. "Baba, this is only food. But if I gave him my hand out of fear, I would lose something far greater, my soul." A week later, the chief of Oru summoned both families. The chief was a man who valued peace in the village, and he had heard enough rumors to demand answers. In the gathering hall, he addressed Lumo and Deko. "You have wealth enough to fill 10 storehouses, yet you seek to force a woman into marriage. This is not the way of Oru." Deko glared, but Lumo's face was unreadable. "We will not trouble the girl again," Lumo said finally, his tongue clipped. And just like that, the matter seemed closed. But Oma knew the decision had cost Deko dearly in pride, and pride was a debt that some men never stopped trying to collect. Months passed, and Oma continued her life, helping neighbors, weaving baskets with her father, fetching water from the river. Slowly, the whispers in the village turned into respect. Mothers began telling their daughters her story, and fathers nodded when they spoke her name. One day, as Oma sat weaving under the shade of a tree, a group of young girls gathered around her. "Is it true," one asked, "that you refused Deko 3 times?" Oma smiled. "It is true." "Were you not afraid?" another asked. "I was afraid," Oma admitted. "But I feared losing myself more than I feared losing his gold." And in that moment, they understood, the courage to say no was worth more than the richest bride price. Wealth can buy finery for the body, but only kindness can clothe the soul. Gold may shine, but it cannot soften a hard heart. As the elders say, a calabash of honey is useless if the lid is poison. Choose kindness. Choose dignity. For these are riches no one can take from you. This story was brought to you by Folktales by Edha. If you enjoyed it, please share with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you'll be the first to know when a new video drops. See you in the next video. Thank you.